Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to welcome Jacob Banks, CEO and founder at Relay.app. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Hey, great to have you here. We were already talking before we started recording. Looking forward to this. So let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I've spent my whole career working on productivity tools. Actually, originally, I was doing AI research at Stanford. I thought I was going to be a professor one day, and my research was on time management and how people make decisions about their time. Why do we procrastinate our term papers? Why do we overestimate how available we're going to be next week? Why do we spend so much of our day on meetings when maybe our personal tasks are more important to us? Then after 2 years of studying that from an academic research context, I ended up dropping out and started a company with my two advisors called Timeful. And what we built at Timeful, this was back in 2013. What we built was an AI powered digital calendar that tried to help you spend time on things that were not meetings. So you could tell it was an iPhone app. You could tell our app, like, I want to run 3 times a week, or I want to create a great presentation next week and it's going to take me about 10 hours, or I have this 2 hour task I really need to do by tomorrow morning. And then we would help you find time and organize your calendar accordingly. We were acquired by Google in 2015. I spent 6 years at Google, where most of that time I was the product lead for Gmail and also for Google Calendar and the Google Workspace developer platform. So then in the productivity and collaboration tools ecosystem, where I worked on sort of the general umbrella of all of those products, and always with a particular focus on how can we use AI and how can we leverage insights from behavioral psychology to help people use these tools more effectively. So an example of a feature we worked on Gmail was we looked at emails that were more than a couple days old that we thought you had forgotten to reply to. And we would nudge them back to your attention with the spirit of like, yeah, how can we make this tool that people use every day more assistive in helping them get the stuff done that's important to them? Then I left Google in 2021 to start the new company, Relay.app, which I'm sure we'll talk about in great detail. But yeah, the goal was, again, to work in productivity and collaboration, again, to figure out how we could create an AI powered tool that helps people get more done with less effort. And in the case of Relay, one thing that might be interesting is I had spent so much time working on email clients and calendar clients that I became really interested in workflows that cut across multiple tools. The things that cut across your email, your calendar, your CRM, and your support tool. Because as hard as it is to be productive in one tool, it's exponentially harder to be productive across multiple tools, especially as your team grows. And so that was sort of the founding premise of Relay. Like, how can we help people who are using many, many tools to get things done across many, many different collaborations within their team? How can we help them be more effective?
Yeah, I love it. I know I could use some more workflow help. And before we talk about Relay, how was that transition from founder to being acquired by a big company and then working in a big company? Easy transition, hard transition? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So maybe I can give some context on where Timeful got to before we were acquired. So we were a 20-person company. We had built an iPhone based digital calendar app, a couple 100,000 very happy users, but it was not a rocket ship that was going to take off and be a public company. And the motivation, and we'd raised 2 rounds of funding at the time. We'd raised back then a seed round of 1.8 million and a series A of 5.1 million. Today, those might be called a pre-seed and a seed, but back then it was a seed and a series A. And the premise of the acquisition was that we were going to take these cool features and ideas that we had developed and build them into Gmail and Google Calendar. So from the beginning, the expectation was not that Timeful would live on as a separate independent product, but that we would join these larger organizations within Google and try to inject some of what we had done. And so I would say the integration and acquisition experience was hard, but ultimately very good. Like, I stayed at Google for 6 years because I really liked the work we were doing there. Some things that were particularly hard about it. Number one, when you're in a startup, incentive alignment is so clear. Like, either this company succeeds and we all succeed, or this company fails and we all fail. Within an organization like Google, which at the time had 100,000 employees, like, incentive alignment is much, much harder. Like, of course, everyone at the high level is incentivized for Google as a company to succeed, but it is totally not obvious as an individual product manager in Gmail or an individual product manager in Google Calendar, like, which of the things you could do with your time and effort are most likely to make Google as a whole succeed. And so it went from being very easy to align a team of 20 on like a North Star of what success meant from us, to very hard to navigate through all the different factions and agendas and different success metrics to figure out like what is a path that we can weave together to get something effective done. So that was one big thing to learn. And the second big thing to learn was the joy and also the pain of working at scale, like Google scale. When you're a small startup, you can make a few assumptions. One, you can assume that there are more users out there, more future users out there than users you have today. So if you have a trade-off between, oh, we know this thing is better for future users, but it's going to be a tough transition for our current users, you just do it because you have to do it. At Google, at Gmail, when I left, we had over 2 billion users. Like, you already have a significant percentage of the world's population using the product. And you can't really assume, like, you can't treat new users and existing users with the same balance as you can in a startup. And when you have a user base of 2 billion users that are using the product in so many different ways, on so many different devices, in so many different languages, on the one hand, it's a really cool feeling. Like, for example, we shipped a couple of really cool anti-phishing features that made it harder to steal people's bank account information from within Gmail. That feels really good to like protect hundreds of millions of people from getting their bank accounts stolen. On the other hand, any feature you have to launch, you have to make sure it works on every single device, in every single language, under any different set of network conditions. From, a student in India who just got their first Android phone up to an executive at Verizon, which was one of our big enterprise clients. And so figure out how to navigate the internal organizational dynamics and incentives and figure out how to operate at the different trade-offs necessitated by scale. Those are both really tough adjustments, but ultimately fun.
Yeah. I get what you mean by joy and pain at working at scale. That makes a ton of sense. So appreciate that insight. So let's talk about your current endeavor. Let's talk about Relay. So what products and services does Relay offer?
Yeah. So Relay is a workflow automation tool that helps people connect multiple products together and create workflows that streamline these common cross product processes. So I'll give you a couple examples that are common. Let's say you get invoices that come into your email through Gmail, and you want to write them to a spreadsheet because you want to look at a consolidated spreadsheet for each month and, add up your bills. You could set up an automation in Relay that connects to Gmail, listens for new invoices, and writes them into a spreadsheet. Another example might be, let's say you have a lead generation form on your website. Maybe it's a Webflow form or a HubSpot form or a Tally form or a Type form. Pick your favorite form provider. And when someone fills out that form, you want to write it into your CRM, and you also want to add them to an email sequence in whatever email marketing tool you use. Relay helps you create these cross-product connections that automate the busy work of doing it manually. If you've heard of Zapier or Make.com, those are two of the leading players in our automation market. And I can tell you all about why we picked this market and why we think we have something that's sort of unique.
Yeah, and I love that very clear example. So appreciate that. And so who are you targeting? Are these individual users? Are these corporations? Tell us well, currently, right? We know ICPs change, but who are you
Yeah.
currently targeting as a customer?
So we're definitely targeting people at work. There are certainly personal use cases for automation, but that is not our focus. We're focused on people who are at work and use multiple different SaaS tools to get their job done. The ICP for a horizontal automation tool like ours is actually fairly broad. It's not like we only sell to sales teams or we only sell to marketing teams or we only sell to finance teams. Most of our users work at smaller companies between, a couple people and 500 people in size. They tend to be other technology companies like us because those are the tools we know well and the integrations we've built first. But we have other examples of medical clinics and real estate firms and other people who need to automate a wide variety of tasks. The job titles of the people who use Relay are typically like operations, program management, or they could just be a head of a function, like a head of sales, or a lead in a given function, like a sales lead. Anyone who is responsible for a workflow or a process within the company and might be incentivized to automate it. And the way they typically find Relay, like we do not do cold outreach, we do not do top-down sales. The way people find out about Relay is they're in a moment of need. They're like, oh my gosh, I just set up this Typeform on my website and I need to get these Typeform accounts into Apollo. And they'll go Google, like, how do I connect Typeform to Apollo and get these leads in? And then they'll see, us and the other workflow automation tools that can solve that problem. So it's very much a bottom-up product-led go-to-market that's driven by people feeling a specific pain of connecting two tools. And then from there, once they find one use case that they connect effectively, we spread to other use cases and spread across their.
Yep. It makes sense. And I was just going to ask if you consider this a product-led motion, which you do. So
Definitely,
PLG.
yeah.
And then, so you get into the individual employee user at a company, from a small company up to 500 employees. And then what's next after that? If you see multiple users in the same company, tell us how then that PLG motion progresses.
Yeah. So very often there are two dynamics that I think work in our favor to expand within a company. The first is when one person sets up a workflow that helps them in their role, it often helps other people in their role as that role grows. So like, let's say you set up a workflow that when someone fills out this form on your website and you need to add them to the right place in your CRM and you add them into the right place in your email marketing tool. And let's say because you're using Relay, you want to have a human in the loop component, which is our major differentiator that we let you add human judgment for a decision or an approval or data input. Let's say you have a step in there where the salesperson needs to make some decision of are they going to go into campaign A or campaign B. One salesperson might set up that automation or one marketing person might set up that automation. And then as more marketing people or salespeople join the team, they would want to automate that in the same way too. So you could build a shared automation where multiple people within the same role can all, use the automation effectively. And so that's how we tend to see spread like within a particular role or within a particular function where people see a use case that another of their teammates has used effectively, and then they use it across that role. The second is a lot of our workflows are actually cross-team workflows because we're doing cross-product connections. Like, yeah, very often if you're a salesperson and you live in HubSpot, you can do a lot within HubSpot. But as soon as you need to collaborate with the support team who lives in Zendesk, that's when you need to build these cross-product workflows. Like when a support ticket comes in via Zendesk, make sure we update the account in HubSpot to reflect that this customer had an issue. And so that's when you can, if you create a Relay workflow to connect those two products and connect those two teams, then you naturally sort of like introduce the product to another team. And so those are the kind of the two motions we've generally seen, and then the third is just like, as you use Relay for one thing, you realize it will be useful for something else. So those are the three. Like you use it for one thing, you see it could be useful for something else, you see it could be useful for other people on your team, and you can see it can be useful across departments.
And if you see usage expanding within a company, do you then reach out and try to do you offer then an
Yeah.
enterprise license, company license? Is that the next step if you see that?
Yeah. And like I said, we're super early, so we've done that
Yeah,
like
yeah.
twice. But so right now on our website, we have 3 totally self-serve. Like, don't talk to us at all. Just sign up and use it. We have a free plan. We have a startup plan, which is up to 10 seats. And then we have what we call our unlimited plan, which is if you need to have more than 10 seats. Those are our 3 self-serve plans. They're free, $9 per user per month or $100 per month flat fee. If you are an enterprise that goes through security reviews and signs enterprise agreements and wants to sign annual contracts, you then enter our enterprise contracting flow and we negotiate a custom price that makes sense. And so that's where we'd like, of course, we'd love all our customers. Not only we'd like them to end up in an enterprise agreement with us, we'd like them to thrive and flourish so much that they grow to be 500,000, 10,000 person companies and need an enterprise agreement with us.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Appreciate that insight and that progression with TLG, even though I know, it's early and a lot of iterations there. So
Yeah.
you founded Relay is in 2021.
Yeah.
Okay. So founded 2021. And do you have a location or are you all virtual?
We are fully remote. And so I'm based in San Francisco. Our team is fully remote. Actually, of our 10 team members, 7 are based in Europe and 3 are based in North America.
Okay. And then my next question is team size. So it's staff of 10 right now.
Yeah. 11, including me. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So about 11. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
And then I know you said early. So right now are you pre-revenue or are you generating some revenue right now?
We are generating revenue. We are making money. We actually, it's kind of a funny story. We only implemented in-product billing like a couple days ago. So before, and we've had the stated limits on our website for a couple months since we launched. And before, because we didn't have in-product billing, when people went over the limit, we would give them a couple of days for free and we'd email them and say, hey, by the way, like you're actually over the limit. Like, can you pay us money through this invoice links? And now we have, proper in-product billing. So we have people paying us in a self-serve capacity. So we are in the very early days of generating.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. And so we talked, I always ask about go-to-market motion, but that PLG motion right now. And then if you see usage going to that kind of sales-led enterprise, try to sign the enterprise license, that makes a ton of sense. And what about, let's talk fundraising right now. Tell
Yeah.
us how much capital you've raised to date.
So we've raised $8.1 million total that came in 2 rounds. First, when we were just starting the company in August of 2021, we raised a $5 million seed round. That was led by Coastal Ventures, which is the same firm that led the Series A in my previous company, Handful. And then in December 2022, we raised an extension to that seed round of $3.1 million led by Andreessen Horowitz. So
Okay.
the 8.1 didn't come all at once. There was the initial investment and then the extension a year and a half later, which was about a year ago.
Okay. So 8.1 total.
Mhm.
And so we had a seed round, seed extension. And so, yeah, I haven't talked to, I know as I track, the fundraising events, you see extensions at a lot of different
Yes.
stages of raising. So let's focus on that. Tell us a little bit about that extension, like the why, the how, how did that come about that you wanted an extension?
Yeah. So when we raised the original $5 million seed round, the kind of timeline on our minds was we wanted to give ourselves about 2.5 years of runway because we built up to a team of 8 relatively quick. And the idea behind that 2.5 years was we were going to take a year to wander in the desert and figure out what the heck we were doing. We were going to take a year to take that moment of clarity and build an actually great product and the early signs of the signs of traction and revenue that would enable us to continue to grow the business. And then, raise money before we run out of money. So give yourself at least 6 months to raise the next round. And things were basically going according to that plan. So we wandered in the desert for about a year. We built a bunch of different prototypes and experiments, mini tools that we launched. We built a to-do list. We built the knowledge base. We built an employee onboarding tool. We built the performance review tool. Each of them we tested with a few customers or a few users to figure out that we were in the exact, and we always knew we wanted to be in this like cross tool productivity and collaboration powered by AI, but that's a pretty broad space. So we did a year of sort of disciplined experimentation. Then in August of 2022, we said, okay, what we're actually doing is we're building this workflow automation tool. It's going to combine automation with human in the loop. We're going to call it Relay because it's a relay. Like I do my part, you do your part. The automation system does their part. And then we announced the company for the first time in the opening of our beta program in October of 2022. At that time, we still had about 20 months of runway left, over a year and a half. So we were not fundraising at the time. But it turned out after we did our announcement and we got a bunch of signups on our wait list and we had a nice TechCrunch article about us, there was a lot of inbound demand from investors to invest in the company, including some people that we really wanted to work with. We were not in a position to raise a Series A at that point. Even if it were offered to us, we would not have taken it. We didn't have the business fundamentals that justified a Series A. And the last thing I want to do is raise too much money in a way that, causes lack of discipline or limits
Mhm.
options. But it felt prudent, as the market had already turned at that point, because it kind of turned in like April, May 2022. So the market was already pretty weak. And so like, wow, if really good investors are offering us money on good terms that enables us to bring new partners in and extend our runway, like we should totally do it. And so that's why, even though we still had sufficient runway at the time, we decided to take this extension with the idea that it would take us from 19 months of runway back up to like a little over 3 years of runway. And I'm so glad that we did it because had we not taken the extension, we would really need to be fundraising right now. And maybe we could pull around together right now. I think we've built a good product and we have good traction, and there are a bunch of reasons why someone would want to invest in us. But it sure is nice to have another 20 months of runway now to enable us to build a much stronger business so that we can raise from a position of strength in the future. So it was opportunistic. I mean, one of the things that I was kind of taught by my mentors early on is, yeah, it's always best to raise money from a position of strength, which means you don't need it or you have a great alternative. And counterintuitively, like the dilution minimize, and that counterintuitively also like a dilution minimizing strategy. Because like in theory, you think, I'm going to raise on these great terms, and then I'm going to get all the way down to 3 months of runway left, and then I'm going to raise on amazing terms, then and I'm going to take no extra dilution. But like in practice, it doesn't work that way, because raising with 3 months of money left, like you're dead in the water and you're going to have a really hard time getting a term to anyone, and investors are really going to turn the screws. And so even though we raised way before we needed to and took a bunch of extra dilution as a result, I actually think it yielded like a way more favorable overall outcome for the company.
So it sounds like, yeah, you weren't really looking, but when you announced that beta, got some PR, then that generated that inbound interest from
It,
investors to then,
and my first reaction was like, no, we're not raising money. Like,
yep.
cause we actually weren't raising money. And then eventually, after talking with some of our existing investors, they were like, hey, if you have new investors coming in that are offering you great terms and are people you really want to work with, you should take it.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. And so looking back at your fundraising journey at Relay with the seed extension, any lessons learned, top of mind that you'd like to pass on to founders listening right now if they're considering a seed, or maybe they have a seed and thinking about, well, should it be an extension? Should it be a Series A? Any thoughts there on lessons learned?
Sure. Yeah. First lesson would be if you're raising money with less than 6 months of runway left, you're going to have a really bad time. Like I've talked to several friends who are first time founders who are like, oh, we have 6 months of runway left. Now we're going to start our fundraising process. It's like, I don't know, like when you have, even if that fundraising process miraculously happens as well as it possibly could, it's going to take 3 or 4 months for that money to close. Even if you get a great competitive round with multiple term sheets after, 2 or 3 weeks of partner pitches. And once you're below 3 months of runway left, like you need to start shutting down the company. Like the mechanics of shutting down the company in a legal and compliant way, like require a few months. And so the biggest thing I'd recommend is like, if your runway is really low and you need additional capital for the business, you need to be thinking about that like 9 months or a year before you run out of money and like actively start pursuing it then. And, 19 months was earlier even than that. But again, I'm really glad, glad that we did it because we could do it from a position of strength. We could do it in a way that gave us way more flexibility and optionality go forward. The second is the reason we went for an extension is I'm really, really sensitive to not raising too much money. And some people, 8.1 is already a lot. I think it makes sense for the kind of business we're building because we need to build a ton of integrations and it does require a lot of engineering to just be kind of credible in our markets. But I saw people in 2021 that were raising 30, 40, $50 million rounds pre-product. And it's so difficult for a business to succeed from that perspective. It's hard to maintain your internal discipline around spending. You have this insane valuation target that you have to live up to. And that it can often make you sort of ignore the fundamentals of disciplined growth to try to create these like unsustainable spikes that are going to get you to these big numbers. And it also really limits the future optionality of the company. Like, for example, like let's say you don't make it all the way to IPO and acquisition is the best offer for the company. If you've already raised $50 million, basically no one can buy you. Like it has to be at least $150 million acquisition, which is like, there's not many people making $150 million acquisitions right now. Whereas if you've only raised 8 or 6 or 4, 25, 30, $40 million acquisition could be it could be a great outcome for the team and for the product living on. So that's the kind of the really tricky balance you have to strike as a founder, which is like, you definitely can't let the company run out of money. If you have money on good terms that's available, you should probably take it because you're going to help prevent the company from running out of money. But don't raise too much because if you raise too much money, you're going to operate in an undisciplined way. You're going to make the future rounds way harder. You're going to make your exit opportunities. You're going to diminish your exit opportunities. And so that's kind of like the balance you have to that you have to slide to. Like, luckily, right now, fiscal discipline is in. So investors are generally aligned with the idea of raising, smaller, more disciplined rounds, but, they still have big funds to deploy and they still have ownership targets to hit. And, you still see people raising pretty big rounds, especially in AI right now.
Yeah, appreciate that insight. And do you think, as a previous founder who had exited, do you think it was easier to raise this time with founder being on your resume previously?
Definitely. My first experience was also abnormal because an academic advisor who was my co-founder in the company, he had founded 3 companies previously. And so I have never experienced real fundraising because like the first time I was like the young tag along to this very experienced, well-regarded co-founder. And this time around, I'm the experienced second time founder that already has all the investor relationships and sort of the credibility. And so I know it's much easier than it would have been if I hadn't had those 2 experiences. I don't know how much easier because I've never lived that other experience.
Yeah, easier, but we don't know. Yeah, how.
Yeah, I definitely way easier. I don't know to what degree.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. And Jacob, at this stage of your business, do you have a favorite number or metric that you're focused on to guide the business?
Yeah, for us, our key metric is what we call highly engaged workspaces. You can think of a workspace as a customer, but they may still be in a free state that haven't yet hit our pay thresholds. And a highly engaged workspace for us is a workspace in which there's meaningful activity, like runs being completed, people creating workflows 3 out of the last 4 weeks. So it's a relatively a high bar for engagement and it'll correlate very well to like long-term retention and monetization. And our goal right now is just grow that, grow that set of highly engaged workspaces as quickly as possible. If that happens, the revenue will follow, the new user acquisition will follow. At some point in the business, we'll probably change to revenue as a North Star metric. But for now, highly engaged workspaces is the right way to incentivize, like to align what we're doing.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. So, Jacob, really appreciate your time today. As we wrap up, tell us what's coming up next for Relay.
Yeah, what's coming up next? We're producing a ton of how-to pages that give people ideas of specific things they can automate based on the tools that they're using. Because one of the things we've often heard is people like, oh yeah, I probably should automate stuff, but I don't really know what, and I don't really know where to start. And if I just do some generic search on what to automate, I get some like overly broad content marketing that doesn't apply to me. And so if you go to relay.app/how-to, and you can type in a tool that you use, you can see our detailed how-to guides of things you might want to automate. And so right now we're just trying to build as many of these how-to guides as possible, build as many new integrations as we can. And then as we learn from our users what automations are most valuable, like continue to go from there.
Okay, great. Yeah, looking forward to
Yeah.
that. And so really appreciate again your time, sharing your experience and insight. If listeners would like to learn more about Relay, where should we send them online?
Yeah, they should go to relay.app or they're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. My username on LinkedIn is Jacob Bank, my first name and last name, no spaces.
Perfect. All right. Check out
Yeah.
relay.app or check out Jacob on LinkedIn. And again, Jacob, appreciate your time and sharing your journey today.
Thanks, Dan. Nice to talk to you. Have a good one.